Chapter 1 of The Queen of Appalachia. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit Librivox.org. The Queen of Appalachia by Joe H. Borders. Chapter 1. Wanted, a Gentleman Correspondent. This is my farewell letter to you, Paul. Our intimacy must cease now and forever. I regret oh so much to give you up, but I dare not say more. I am to be married the coming week. Forget the past and forgive your Jersey friend. One parting kiss and your unknown correspondent will bid you a final adieu. Paul Thornton was 21, a bright, handsome young man, and the only son of a well-to-do merchant. In the little mountain town in which he was born and where he grew to his present interesting age, he was a social leader. He was fairly educated, and was an intelligent, ambitious youth, far above the average. The Thorntons were known far and wide for their sobriety and thriftiness, and the family of which Paul was a conspicuous member was well and favourably known. David Thornton had engaged in mercantile pursuits early in life, and by careful business methods had succeeded in amassing considerable wealth, and was regarded as the leading businessman of that section of the country. The elder Thornton was proud of his boy, and lost no opportunity to encourage Paul's ambition to become a giant in the business world of that mountainous district. Thus it was that Paul speedily assumed the active management of the large store, including the post office. Princeton was one of those quaint old mountain towns which has the air and tone of the finished product. Just when it was built is not a matter of record, and the occasional addition of a new building was a matter of great importance among its inhabitants. No railway locomotives with their shrieking whistles and sooty columns of black smoke disturbed Princeton. No telegraphic instruments ticked to her people exciting news from the outside world. There were no strikes, no tramps, no new political apostles, no telephones, not even a local newspaper. The educational mill was a modest little building, containing one room, where 200 or more pupils were crowded together for instruction from one teacher. The electric light plant consisted of kerosene oil and tallow candles, and the fire department an unorganized bucket brigade. There were two important events in which Princetonites took an active interest each week, viz., the arrival of the mail carrier, who was the captain of a star route from a little town some 40 miles away, and the occasional landing of a small steamer at the wharf, the river being navigable for steamboats during certain seasons of the year. Aside from these two principal diversions, there was the usual protracted meeting, and the singing school, both of which were considered genuine luxuries. The great men of the age from a Princeton standpoint were the school teacher, the singing master, and the circuit rider, and they were respected as such. In matters social, the Princeton receptions were big dinner parties, the hostess and her daughters spending most of the day in a hot kitchen, the room permeated with the aroma of chicken and dumplings, and pies and cakes. There was but one set, which included rich and poor, old and young. Whether it was a husking bee, a quilting party, or a social gathering, it was a free-for-all, without any social distinctions whatever. Young Thornton was a lion in Princeton society. He it was who, as buyer for his father's mercantile establishment, visited the city 4 times a year, and set the fashion for the young people of the town. In their ignorance of the general attractions and amusements of the more progressive towns, they were content and happy, and Paul continued to exercise his important position at the head of the procession of the great and only Princeton. His life so far was an uneventful one. Grief and worry and care were practically unknown to this young man whose future was painted in one grand scene of triumph and brilliancy. It was no wonder, therefore, that he was a more than welcome visitor at every home in the vicinity, and more than one mother of marriageable daughters had a pleased and patronizing smile for Paul Thornton. The country post office is a great educator. In those days the name and address for sale genius was not in business, and publishers of magazines and other periodicals were compelled to send sample copies of their publications to the postmaster for distribution and introduction. In this way Paul had access to every kind of literature. He read everything that reached the post office, and by this means became well informed upon all the current topics, and was the only fin de siècle inhabitant of sleepy old Princeton. Some 7 years prior to the period of which we are now writing, young Thornton, at the age of 14, got hold of a sample copy of a matrimonial paper. It was an invitation to his young mind, and the allurements held out by young ladies
Sample complete. Ready to continue?